Quit worrying so much about finding your brand voice and focus on this instead. Because if you can't tell me why you do what you do, the way you do it differently or better than somebody that does the very same thing, especially if they're charging less, then we need to stop there and figure it out. In this video, whether you are just starting to get paid for your creativity or you're working on building your authority and doing a little bit of a brand refresh, you need to know these 9 tips to building an unforgettable, bingeable brand. Because it's easier than ever now to start a creative small business. Yay, but now you need to figure out how to set yourself apart. So this is part 2 to a 3-part video series I'm doing, basically called What I'd Do If I Woke Up and Had Lost It All. If I had to start my business all over from scratch, this is the plan I'd follow. Be sure to watch last week's video if you haven't yet so you can catch up. And if you're ready, click that like button, especially if branding is something that interests you as much as it does me. Number 1, define a very clear value proposition for your brand. Okay, let's have a little heart-to-heart. All the great digital marketing tools that are out there, from paid marketing and ads to social media marketing, speaking on stages, all that's great. It's just going to take a microphone and hold it up to what you're already doing and what your brand already is. So you've got to start there. We've got to figure this one out. A guy named Rosser Reeves is the one who coined this phrase, unique selling proposition, unique value proposition. Basically, we've got to figure out why you're different. So if you've been around my business, you've probably heard some clear messaging phrases. I've said them over and over again. Those are parts of my value prop. You've heard me say, I help you make more money with your words. You've heard me say, I want to help you work from a place of rest, not hustle. If you're familiar with my signature product, maybe you've heard me say how copywriting for creatives can help you master your message and write your site in 30, 60, or 90 days. That's a product-specific value prop. I want you to zoom out and find that for your overall business. Copywriters sometimes call this the big idea. Again, I'm zooming out to talk about your overall brand. But how do you figure out what to say here so you can really double down on that and claim it as your brand promise? Well, my students know we call this your onlyness factor, and we work so hard on figuring this out as part of the brand messaging piece of copywriting for creatives. But I want to tell you right now some quick ways you can start today figuring it out. There's a few ways you can pull yourself out from the pack and see what it is that makes you different. Maybe it's taking your own quirks, personality, your story, and then matching that with your products, your system, your process. Say you're the only photographer on the Eastern Seaboard that services weddings at horse estate weddings. Well, that's very distinct. Maybe it's the audience you serve that sets you apart from the crowd. You can see how all this is bleeding into niching. We're going to talk about that in a sec, but I want to bring it into a place where you can really figure out that brand promise, UVP, USP. Another idea I've given students to help pull themselves out and figure out why they're different from other people, maybe it's your process. Can you name your process? Do you have a certain way of working through things? It's your IP. It's something that you've developed and you've honed and you've tested. It was a hypothesis that is now all clear, systems go, and you provide it for your clients. Well, that could absolutely be your UVP. Tip number 2, and this coincides with that first one, we really want to niche and put your stake in the ground and say clearly who you're for and who you're not for. It's okay to not be for everybody. In fact, I did a whole video where I talk at length, I'll link it here and below, about vertical and horizontal niching. I also talked about this a little bit in last week's video. Niching, though, is how you accelerate dominating a specific category. It's going to help you be light years more clear in your copy and your content marketing. And another little side effect bonus is it's going to help you be able to book speaking engagements, conferences, online summits, virtual events. If you're the only one that services a certain group of people with whatever it is that you do, well, dang, they need the expert and you're the one to ask. Finally, it makes you referable. It is so hard to refer someone business if you can't really think exactly what they do, or they do a lot of things and then there's somebody over here who does just this and that's all they focus on. That person becomes a little bit easier to refer leads to. So think about it from a partnership standpoint too. You don't have to hang out there forever, but the whole niche down to blow up was absolutely true for me. Again, if you're brand spanking new to business and you don't have a roster of clients in the industry you want to work in yet, then be sure to watch that video at this minute mark so you can catch up on it. At the end of the day, find the you-sized gap in the market and go out there and fill it. Tip number 3. Now, if all this is good, but the story isn't interesting, then people aren't going to stick around. I talk a lot about story over here. Let's just hit it hard. In this tip, I want you to find 3 brand stories. Back pocket them and then bring them up over and over again in your marketing. This is one of the easiest things you can do to start to build a brand and create touch points that you land on again and again. Real quick, 3 to have on hand, if you can remember OAT, OAT, Your origin story, why it is that you picked up a paintbrush or wanted to work in florals for a living. Number 2, your aha moment, that moment when the skies parted and you realized, oh my gosh, this is a business idea. People want to pay me for it. I can't wait. I'm starting a business. And number 3, a great transformational story. It might be your transformational journey, but it's likely another client or customers that you've worked with. Telling those stories, hitting on them as a thematic element in your brand messaging, that cannot help but humanize your brand. Dial them in. That's going to give you lots of opportunities to pull people into the why behind your business. I have a video that talks about story more. I will link it down in the description box below. The 4th tip is using visuals. Because if all of this isn't tied up in a visually appealing box, then people don't always want to get the goods. And I've learned so much on this because I am a writer. I am not by nature a designer or a photographer. One of our agency clients, Sandra Chow, said this and I loved it. She said, you don't have a choice if you're the CEO of a small business, you're also the creative director of it. Hear my heart though, there's absolutely ways to bootstrap this with not a lot of cash when you're getting started. I touched on it slightly in the first video in this series, but to go into it a little bit more in depth, when I started my business, I did take some of my own stock imagery for my website. Took me about a month to realize that is not my skill set. And I purchased one $79 full, huge, massive image that I could cut and crop and use. I got it from my friend Shay at SC Stock Shop. She now has Social Squares, which is a great tool too, but there are plenty of stock imagery options out there that don't look like robots. You can also buy brand boards from people, and y'all know I love website templates. I started my website on a template. I'm 5 years in business. I now have a 7-figure business. I'm now investing in a custom big website. I love custom work. We do custom work on the copywriting side of my business, but when you're first getting started, you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, and it is a heck of a lot to invest in a custom website or custom design strategy when you're not quite sure if everything is gonna take sale. Again, build the business, then build the brand. One more tip I'll give you here. I was told that you need to be willing to buy your own services. So if you're charging 4 figures for your service, then you need to be willing to invest 4 figures in somebody else to help you get there. Heck yes, that'll preach. When it came to the visual elements of my business, after I'd heard that advice, I tried to do it, and I found an art director I really was dying to work with, and I saved and saved until I could afford her. I wanted to charge more for my services, I wanted to look the part, and I wanted to invest that amount of money back into my own business and see what it felt like to be a client paying that much for a service. In full disclosure, this is my very first website. It is not that amazing, but I focused so much on those first tips I gave you in here. The messaging, really figuring out how to build a business, and then I started to work off and create the brand around it. And the next tip here is listen to what people say about your business. That's your brand. That's the perception that people have about you. As Jeff Bezos said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So they're talking, use that to define your brand. I love doing this. Go ahead and ask people, ask friends, family members, how they would describe you if you're starting your business, or how they would describe your brand, business if you've already built it, clients, customers, partners, followers. Ask them and then pay attention to what they say. Okay, next up, I want you to add in some mascot moments. This tip is not something you have to do. I personally have seen it make a big difference. It's so cool if you can have a thing that people associate with your brand. I always loved champagne, but I really liked the story of Madame Clicquot. She was one of the first female entrepreneurs. I found her story pretty inspiring. When I first started working with a creative director, she took that concept that I already had a little bit in my imagery and she went for it. It created this organic orange and blue theme that I loved as an Auburn fan, War Eagle. But I got their perspective. I was able to step back and see, okay, that champagne thing that was just an idea of mine really has some sticking power. I can use it as a metaphor for launching products, services, websites, which we do for our clients all the time. Let me bring it back to the tip I'm trying to communicate here. Now I get tagged in champagne stuff on Instagram all the time. I have people text me when they see champagne related things. Major branding win. I've created little moments that when people aren't even around, Ashlyn writes, they're seeing something and thinking of me, maybe. Build a brand that is hard to mimic, and I've found that this little tip is one thing that can definitely make it pretty obvious if somebody is trying to, shall we say, get a little too much inspiration from what you do. And finally, define a clear brand voice. Congratulations, you made it through all the other tips, so we can now talk about voice because we've laid the foundation. I've done a lot of videos on finding your voice, so I'll link some of those, but I'll leave it at this. When you're starting out, trust that you'll refine your brand voice in time. It's a writing habit that you will develop because you have to write a lot as an entrepreneur. You have to experiment, you have to try different things. If you're working on getting started though and need a little bit of a pointer in a direction of what your voice may sound like online as you start to market your business, then look down below or go to ashlynwrites.com/quiz. This is my Find Your Voice Vibe quiz. Once you go through it, you'll see your selling style. I think that will be helpful for you, but you'll also get a little mini copy bank of some words that describe your brand voice, and that can be something you can pocket. Now, if you want to see that crash course 1-month plan on how I would start my business over from scratch, be sure to watch the next video I have for you where I'm telling you what I'd do if I woke up, lost it all, and had to start over. If you found this helpful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next series coming up, and be sure to comment below with any questions that you may have. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch. Here's to working from a place of more rest, less hustle, and I'll see you in the next video.